Hey guys, tonight we are fastening our stiffest collars, packing our heaviest wool coats, and boarding a steam locomotive bound for the English coast. We are traveling back to the mid-19th century, a time when doctors believed that the cure for almost anything, from melancholia to tuberculosis, was to be aggressively dunked in freezing water and forced to drink pints of cloudy brine. You are going to the seaside, but this isn't a vacation. It is a serious medical procedure involving questionable hygiene and very expensive sand. To be honest, considering the rudimentary state of Victorian sewage systems and the amount of arsenic in the wallpaper at your hotel, you probably won't survive this health retreat without contracting at least a mild case of typhoid. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, let me know where you are listening from and what time it is. I love imagining these stories playing out in corners of the world I've never seen. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are sitting in a second-class carriage, and the world is vibrating. It is a rhythmic, lulling shudder, chug-a-chug, chug-a-chug. It rattles your teeth just enough to be noticeable, but not enough to keep you fully awake. You have been on this train for 3 hours now, leaving the yellow, pea-soup fog of London far behind. You are tired. It is a deep, bone-weary exhaustion that seems to have settled into the very fibers of your tweed jacket. That is why you are here, of course. Your physician, a man with very impressive sideburns and a very grim expression, told you quite plainly that your nerves are shattered and your constitution is flagging. His prescription was written with a flourish. 1 month at Margate. You lean your head back against the antimacassar, that little crochet doily pinned to the seat specifically to catch the macassar oil from your hair. It smells faintly of lavender and stale pipe smoke. Outside the window, the industrial sprawl of the city has finally given way to the rolling patchwork of the Garden of England. The Kentish countryside is a blur of green and gold, smeared by the occasional drift of white steam from the engine ahead. You watch the telegraph wire swoop up and down, a hypnotic dance that makes your eyelids heavy. It is easy to forget, in our modern rush, just how miraculous this speed feels to you. You are traveling at nearly 30 miles per hour. It feels dangerously fast, bordering on reckless. There is a mainstream historical fact you should know. Before the 1840s, a trip to the coast would have taken days of bruising travel by stagecoach. But now, thanks to the explosion of the railways, the ocean is just a morning's ride away. It feels like magic, though the soot gathering on the windowsill suggests it's a magic fueled by a tremendous amount of coal. You shift in your seat, trying to find a comfortable position. It isn't easy. Victorian fashion was not designed for sitting. It was designed for standing upright and looking morally superior. Your clothing is a fortress of structure. The collar of your shirt is starched so stiffly it feels like a ceramic ring around your neck. Your waistcoat is tight. Your trousers are heavy wool, which is itching slightly in the warmth of the carriage. You wonder briefly why you didn't pack lighter, but then you remember. One does not dress down for the seaside. Decorum must be maintained, even when one is covered in sand. Across from you, a woman is peeling an orange with the surgical precision of a diamond cutter. She catches your eye and offers a tight, polite nod before returning to her fruit. She, too, looks pale. She, too, is likely heading to the coast to take the waters. You are all pilgrims on the same iron road, seeking the restorative powers of the sea. Historians still argue whether the Victorian obsession with the seaside was truly driven by health concerns, or if it was simply a socially acceptable excuse for the buttoned-up middle classes to let their hair down, literally and metaphorically. But looking around the carriage, no one looks like they are preparing to party. They look like they are preparing for a medical exam. The train begins to slow. The rhythm changes from a gallop to a trot. Clack, clack, clack. The whistle blows, a lonely, high-pitched shriek that cuts through the afternoon haze. You can smell it now. Beneath the sulphurous scent of burning coal and the dust of the carriage, there is something sharp and metallic in the air. Salt, dot, dot, Iodine dawn. Decay. It's the smell of the ocean at low tide. The conductor moves through the corridor, his brass buttons gleaming. Margate! Margate Station! All change for the sands. You stand up, your knees cracking audibly. You reach up to the luggage rack for your valise. It is absurdly heavy. You have packed enough clothes for an Arctic expedition, mostly because you have been told the sea air can be bracing, which is British code for absolutely freezing. You step out onto the platform, and the wall of noise hits you. Margate Station is a cathedral of steam and iron. It is chaotic. Porters are shouting, wheeling great trolleys of trunks stacked like ziggurats. Children are screaming, already high on the promise of donkey rides. You navigate the crush, clutching your hat to your head. You hand your ticket to a man who looks like he has seen too many tourists today and just wants a cup of tea. Stepping out of the station building, the light seems different here. It is brighter, harsher than the filtered gloom of London. The sky is a vast, pale blue, scrubbed clean by the wind. And there is wind. It whips around the corner of the station, grabbing at your coattails. This is the famous ozone you have been promised. Quirky little tidbit for you. The Victorians believed ozone was a distinct, health-giving chemical element abundant at the seaside, responsible for the sharp smell. We now know that smell is mostly rotting seaweed and shellfish poop. But for you, in this moment, it smells like health. It smells like a cure. You hail a carriage. The driver, a man with a face weathered like old leather, tips his cap. Where to, Governor? The Royal Crescent, you say, trying to sound authoritative. The carriage rattles over the cobblestones. You look out at the town. It is a strange mix of elegance and carnival. To your left, grand stucco terraces gleam white in the sun, their balconies wrapped in intricate ironwork. To your right, down towards the water, you catch glimpses of the beach. It is crowded. Even from here, you can see the rows of bathing machines lined up like a defensive army facing the waves. You feel a flutter of anxiety in your stomach. Tomorrow morning, you will have to go down there. You will have to participate in the ritual. You have read the guidebooks. They speak of immersion and frictional rubbing and internal consumption. It sounds less like a holiday, and more like a punishment for a crime you don't remember committing. But as the carriage climbs the hill toward your hotel, you catch your full view of the horizon. The sea is a flat, gray-green sheet, stretching out to the edge of the world. And it looks indifferent to your suffering. It looks calm. You take a deep breath, inhaling the rotting seaweed and the coal smoke, and you tell yourself that this is going to be good for you. You are going to be invigorated. You are going to be restored, even if you have to drink half the English Channel to make it happen. You wake up the next morning to the sound of gulls screaming. It isn't the gentle ambient crying of birds you might expect from a nature documentary. It is an aggressive, rhythmic screeching, like a gang of rusty hinges being worked back and forth directly outside your window. You lie still for a moment, staring at the ceiling of your hotel room. The plasterwork is elaborate, a ring of roses and cherubs. There is a damp patch in the corner that looks suspiciously like a map of the British Empire. The bed is high and soft, a marshmallow of feathers that threatens to swallow you whole. It is tempting to stay here, buried under the heavy quilt, but your prescription is strict. Morning immersion, the doctor had written, underlining it twice. Ideally before breakfast. You swing your legs out of bed. The floorboards are cold. You dress quickly, skipping the formal coat for a slightly looser boating jacket, though you still have to contend with the suspenders and the collar studs. You look in the mirror. You look tired, but perhaps a little less gray than you did in London. Or maybe that's just the reflection of the sea light bouncing off the white walls. You trudge downstairs and out into the morning. The air is brisk. Brisk is another one of those polite Victorian words that actually means painful. It slaps your cheeks and makes your eyes water. You walk down the hill towards the beach, clutching your towel and a small bag containing your bathing costume. The beach at this hour is a hive of activity, but it is strange, segregated activity. This is the era of modesty, and the shoreline is strictly divided. Gentlemen to the left, ladies to the right. separated by a wide expanse of sand that is patrolled by moral guardians. Mostly old women with very sharp umbrellas to ensure no illicit glances are exchanged. Your destination is the line of bathing machines. These are essentially wooden garden sheds on large, sturdy wheels. They are parked at the high tide mark, waiting for customers. You approach the bathing master, a burly man with forearms the size of ham hocks, and a face that looks like it was carved out of granite. He takes your coin and points you toward machine number 7. You climb the wooden steps at the back of the machine and enter. It is small, dark, and smells intensely of damp wood and salt. There is a small bench, a mirror that is too clouded to see anything in, and a row of hooks. You begin the awkward process of undressing in a box that is rocking gently in the wind. You hang up your tweed trousers. You hang up your shirt. You are now standing naked in a shed on a public beach. It feels undignified. You pull on your bathing costume. It is a woolen garment, striped in navy blue and white, that covers you from your neck to your knees. It is itchy. It is heavy. And you know, with a sinking feeling, that the moment it gets wet, it will become 3 times heavier and sag in ways that defy the laws of physics. Once you are changed, you knock on the wall. This is the signal. Suddenly, a machine lurches. You grab the bench for support. A horse has been hitched to the other end of your shed, and you are now being dragged backwards into the sea. The wheels grind through the shingle, rumbling and shaking the entire structure. Crunch, crunch, splash. The sound of the wheels on stones changes to the sound of water slapping against wood. The floor tilts. You are afloat, or at least your shed is semi-buoyant. The motion stops. You are now parked in about 3 feet of water. You open the door on the sea-facing side. The view is endless water. A canvas hood, like the top of a pram, extends down from the door to the water, creating a private tunnel, so that not even the seagulls can see you enter the waves. This is the pinnacle of privacy technology. You stare at the water. It is gray. It looks angry. Historians still argue whether the dippers, the strong men and women hired to help bathers, were providing a service or a mild form of assault. You are about to find out. A face appears at the bottom of the steps. It is the bathing master's assistant. He is already waist deep in the water, wearing what looks like heavy oilskins. "Come on then, sir," he says, his voice surprisingly cheery. "Best get it over with." And you go. You step down the ladder. The cold hits your ankles first. It is a shock so profound it feels like a burn. You gasp. You take another step. Your knees go numb. You grit your teeth and plunge in. The dipper grabs your arms. 1, 2, 3. Under. Before you can protest, before you can even take a breath, he dunks you. Your head goes under. The salt water rushes into your nose and ears. The cold is total and absolute. It squeezes the air out of your lungs. You come up sputtering, gasping, wiping the stinging brine from your eyes. And again, he shouts. He dunks you again. This, apparently, is the therapy. You are not swimming. You are being laundered. The shock of the cold is supposed to reset the humors and stimulate the circulation. Right now, the only thing it is stimulating is a strong desire to be back in London breathing coal smoke. After 3 dunks, he releases you. You stand there, shivering violently. Your woolen suit now hanging off you like a sodden sack. The water feels like ice. But then, a strange thing happens. As the initial shock fades, your skin starts to tingle. A warmth spreads from your core. You feel awake, more awake than you have felt in years. The adrenaline is coursing through you. Good for the constitution, that, the dipper nods approvingly. Now, back in the box before you catch your death. You scramble back up the ladder, your teeth chattering a rhythm that matches the train from yesterday. You strip off the wet wool, toweling yourself dry with frantic energy. You dress quickly, your fingers fumbling with the buttons because they are numb. The machine rumbles again as it is hauled back to the dry sand. You step out onto the beach, fully dressed, feeling lightheaded and strangely euphoric. The wind no longer feels cold. It feels refreshing. You have survived the ocean. You have conquered the bathing machine. But your ordeal isn't over. As you walk back up the beach, avoiding the donkey rides and the children digging moats, you check your pocket watch. It is time for the second part of the cure. You must head to the pump room. It is time to drink the water you were just swimming in. You leave the shingle beach behind, your shoes crunching satisfyingly on the paved promenade. The wind is still whipping at your hair, drying the last damp patches of salt on your skin, but you are heading indoors now. You are heading toward the social heart of this medical purgatory, the assembly rooms. This building stands like a wedding cake at the center of the town. White stucco, Greek columns, and an air of desperate respectability. Inside, the roar of the ocean is replaced by a hushed, reverent murmur. It sounds like a library, the one where everyone is reading their own medical records aloud. The air here is warm and smells of lavender water, floor wax, and the distinct metallic tang of the cure being served by the gallon. You pay your entrance fee, a shilling, which seems steep just to sit in a room, and step into the great hall. It is a cavernous space with high ceilings and chandeliers that tinkle softly in the draft. A string quartet is playing in the corner. They look bored. The cellist is staring into the middle distance with the glazed expression of a man who has played Pachelbel's canon 4,000 times and is plotting a murder. But you aren't here for the music. You are here for the water. You approach the long marble counter at the far end of the room. A woman in a starch-stiff apron stands guard over a row of glass dispensers and ceramic pitchers. She looks like she has never smiled in her life, possibly because she knows exactly what she is serving. "Morning draft, sir?" she asks. It isn't really a question. You nod. She picks up a clean glass, heavy crystal, beautifully cut, and fills it from a pitcher. The liquid is slightly cloudy. It looks innocuous. It looks like tap water. But you know better. This is seawater, collected, allegedly, from the purest depths, which usually means a guy in a rowboat went out about 50 yards at high tide. Sometimes, depending on the specific prescription of your doctor, it might be mixed with milk to make it palatable. A word that is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. Yours, however, is neat. You take the glass. It is lukewarm. You raise it to your lips. There is a mainstream historical fact you should appreciate while you hesitate. Dr. Richard Russell, the 18th century physician who practically invented this seaside holiday, wrote an entire treatise called A Dissertation on the Use of Seawater and the Diseases of the Glands. He was adamant that drinking the ocean could cure everything from leprosy to bad humors. He recommended a pint a day. You look at your glass. It holds perhaps half a pint. You are getting off light. You tip your head back and drink. The taste is indescribable. It is salt, obviously, but it is also mineral heavy, slightly fishy, and has a texture that feels thicker than fresh water. It slides down your throat like a mistake. Your stomach immediately protests, sending a signal to your brain that says, "We are land mammals." Why are you doing this? You fight the urge to gag, swallowing hard, and set the glass down with a definitive clink. "Very good, sir," the woman says, devoid of irony. "Now comes the second part of the ritual. You cannot simply drink and leave. You must circulate. The water must be walked through the system. So, you join the slow, clockwise procession of people moving around the perimeter of the room. This is the Victorian equivalent of the office water cooler, but instead of discussing TV shows, everyone is discussing their bowels. You fall into step behind a large man with impressive mutton-chop whiskers and a gouty limp. He is talking to his companion, a thin woman in gray silk. "The doctor says the iron content is doing wonders for my bile," the man rumbles. "I felt a distinct shifting this morning." Shifting? How marvelous," the woman replies, sounding deeply jealous. I fear my own constitution is proving stubborn. The waters here are perhaps too vigorous. I felt a palpitation after breakfast. You nod politely as you pass them. This is the currency of the Seaside resort. Competitive hypochondria. Everyone here is vaguely unwell, but essentially healthy enough to travel, dress up, and walk in circles for an hour. It is a performance of fragility. You spot the lady from the train yesterday. She's sitting on a velvet banquette, sipping her brine with her eyes closed, looking as if she is enduring a religious trial. You offer a small bow. She opens one eye, recognizes you as a fellow sufferer from the carriage of silence, and gives a microscopic nod. You are bonded now. You are trench mates in the war against wellness. As you complete your third lap of the room, you start to feel the peculiar relaxation that comes with organized boredom. There is nothing to do here. You cannot work. Your office is in London. You cannot rush. Running would be undignified. You cannot even read the newspaper too vigorously, lest you excite your nerves. You are forced to simply be. You listen to the scrape of boots on the wooden floor, the rustle of crinolines, the low hum of gossip. It is hypnotic. Scrape, rustle, murmur. Scrape, rustle, murmur. The string quartet transitions into a slow waltz. The light streaming through the tall windows is full of dust motes dancing in the salt air. A quirky fringe tidbit for you. Some guidebooks of the time actually recommended that while promenading, one should avoid deep intellectual topics and focus instead on light, agreeable trifles. So, the conversation around you is aggressively shallow. People are discussing the weather. It is fine. The quality of the whelks at the harbor, rubbery. And the scandalous rumor that the Prince of Wales might be visiting, he isn't. Historians still argue whether these water cures had any physiological benefit at all, or if the improvement in patients' health was simply due to removing stressed-out city dwellers from the toxic smog of the Industrial Revolution and forcing them to rest. Standing here listening to the waltz, you suspect it's the latter. You feel your shoulders drop an inch. The knot of tension in your chest, the one that's been there since you reviewed the quarterly accounts last Tuesday, begins to loosen. You aren't healed, not yet. Your stomach is still churning slightly from the pint of the English Channel you just ingested. But as you watch the dust mote spin, you realize you aren't thinking about work. You aren't thinking about the leak in your roof or the rising cost of coal. You are just thinking about how salty your mouth tastes, and whether you can get away with sitting down for 10 minutes before the bathing master finds you and demands you inhale some seaweed. You finish your lap and head toward the exit. The morning draft is complete. Now, according to your schedule, it is time for respiratory therapy. This sounds medical, but you have a sneaking suspicion it involves just standing outside again. You adjust your cuffs, nod to the unsmiling lady at the counter, and step back out into the bright, blinding day. You leave the assembly rooms and climb the winding path toward the cliffs. This is the location for your next appointment. Ozone accumulation. It sounds high-tech, perhaps involving brass tubes and glass beakers, but as with most things in the Victorian Seaside repertoire, it turns out to be remarkably low effort. You simply have to stand in a very windy spot, then breathe until you get dizzy. You find a wooden bench positioned precariously close to the edge of the chalk cliff. The view is spectacular, the white foam crashing against the rocks below, the endless gray horizon. The wind up here is a physical force. It roars in your ears, snatching the breath from your mouth before you can fully inhale it. You plant your feet firmly, afraid that a particularly strong gust might blow you back to the train station, and you begin the procedure. Inhale. You fill your lungs with the cold, sharp air. Exhale. You let it out, supposedly expelling the miasma of London's soot that has clogged your system. A mainstream historical fact for you to ponder while you hyperventilate. The Victorians were obsessed with the idea of bad air or miasma causing disease. They believed the seaside air contained special electrified oxygen particles, ozone, that acted as a disinfectant for the lungs. You can practically taste it. It tastes metallic and clean, like licking a frozen lamppost. You are not alone in this ritual. Further down the path, an elderly gentleman is performing calisthenics, swinging his arms like a windmill to maximize lung expansion. The nanny is wrestling a pram against the gale. The baby inside swaddled so tightly it looks like a parcel ready for posting. After 20 minutes of aggressive breathing, your head is spinning. You feel light, airy, and possibly on the verge of fainting. This, you assume, is wellness. You descend from the cliffs, your face numb and windburned, and head toward the bathhouse for your afternoon treatment. If the morning was about cold shocks and internal drowning, the afternoon is about heat and slime. You are booked for a Thalassotherapy Fucus Wrap. In plain English, you are going to be boiled in seaweed. The bathhouse is a steamy, tiled building that smells intensely of low tide and carbolic soap. You are led by an attendant, a silent man with arms like tree trunks, into a small private cubicle. In the center is a deep cast-iron tub filled with steaming, dark brown sludge. It looks like soup that has gone terribly wrong. Strip, the attendant says. He does not offer to turn around. You disrobe and lower yourself into the tub. The heat is shocking after the cliff-top wind. It is scaldingly hot. And then the texture. Well, it is unique. You are sitting in a suspension of hot seawater and bladder wrack. Thick, rubbery strands of seaweed that pop under your weight. It is slippery. It is slimy. It feels like bathing in a swamp, but a very expensive medical swamp. The attendant begins the application. He scoops up handfuls of the hot, wet weeds and plasters them across your chest, your arms, your legs. The smell is overwhelming. A concentrated punch of iodine and rotting vegetation. A quirky fringe tidbit. Highly prized seaweed was often harvested after storms because it was believed to be agitated and therefore more potent. You are currently covered in agitated vegetables. The iodine in the weed is seeping into your pores, staining your skin a faint yellow-brown. You look like a bog body that has been recently excavated. Stay, the attendant commands. He throws a heavy rubber sheet over the tub to trap the steam, leaving only your head sticking out. You are now a seaweed burrito. You lie there, sweating profusely. The heat penetrates your muscles, melting away the stiffness from the train ride and the morning's freezing dip. It is deeply, bizarrely relaxing. The silence in the cubicle is heavy, broken only by the drip of condensation from the ceiling and your own slow breathing. Drip, drip, drip. Historians still argue whether the absorption of iodine through the skin actually did anything for the thyroid or metabolism as claimed, or if the sheer heat simply forced the body to relax by inducing a mild fever state. As the sweat runs down your forehead and stings your eyes, you decide it doesn't matter. You are warm. You are horizontal. You are safe from the wind. After what feels like an hour, but is probably 20 minutes, the attendant returns. He peels back the rubber sheet. Dot. You rise from the primordial soup, shedding strands of seaweed like a swamp monster. You are rinsed with a bucket of warm water, and then the friction begins. This is the pummeling promised in the brochures. The attendant takes a rough linen towel. It feels essentially like sandpaper, and begins to rub you down with terrifying vigor. He scrubs your back, your arms, your legs until your skin is glowing pink. It is borderline painful, a vigorous exfoliation that threatens to remove not just the dead skin cells, but perhaps a layer of the living ones too. He slaps your back to finish the circulation. Good color, he grunts. Healthy? You stagger out of the bathhouse, your skin tingling, your body feeling like jelly. You are exhausted. It is a profound, heavy physical tiredness that you haven't felt in years. It isn't the stress tiredness of the city, that wired, anxious buzzing in your brain. This is the tiredness of a child who has played outside all day. Your limbs feel heavy and loose. Your mind is blank. You walk slowly back toward your hotel. The sun is beginning to dip lower in the sky, casting long golden shadows across the promenade. The sharp edge is gone from the light. The wind has dropped. You smell of salt, iodine, and boiled weeds. You feel ridiculous, pickled, and scrubbed raw. But as you reach the hotel steps, you realize something. You are hungry. Voraciously, wildly hungry. The salt air and the thermal shock have kick-started your metabolism. You are ready to eat a horse, or at least a very large piece of fish. You are ready for the final act of the day. Dinner was exactly what you needed. A piece of boiled cod the size of a hymnal, smothered in a white sauce that tasted vaguely of nutmeg and patience, followed by a swift pudding that landed in your stomach with the authority of a gavel. You are now comfortably, heavily full. You sit back in the hotel dining room, nursing a small glass of medicinal brandy, strictly for the digestion, of course, and watch the light fade outside the window. It is your last evening here. Tomorrow, the steam train will rattle you back to London, back to the smoke, the ledgers, and the noise. But you have one final ritual to complete before you can retire to that marshmallow bed. You must take the evening constitutional. A walk after dinner is not optional in Victorian society. It is required to ensure that the heavy suet pudding does not simply stop your heart in the night. You don't bother with the heavy coat this time. The air is softened. You step out onto the promenade and the world is transformed. The harsh, clinical brightness of the day has been replaced by the soft, violet bruise of twilight. The sea has turned a deep, bruised purple, whispering rather than roaring against the shingle. You walk toward the pier. This is the crown jewel of the resort, a mainstream historical fact to consider as your boots echo on the timber planks. Before the mid-19th century, piers were purely functional landing stages for boats. It was the engineer Eugenius Birch who reimagined them as pleasure piers, promenades that allowed you to walk on water without getting wet, extending the social stage of the town right out into the ocean. You pay your penny at the turnstile, the tuppenny toll, and walk out over the waves. Beneath your feet, you can see the dark water churning through the gaps in the floorboards. It gives you a pleasant shiver of vertigo. The structure itself is a marvel of cast iron. A spider web of trusses and girders painted in festive reds and creams. Though now, in the dim light, they look like the skeleton of some great leviathan. The pier is quieter now. The day trippers have gone home. The donkey rides have ended. What remains are the couples, gentlemen in top hats and ladies in bonnets, walking arm in arm, taking advantage of the legitimate loitering that the pier allows. Historians still argue whether the explosion of pier building was driven by engineering hubris, or simply because the Victorians desperately needed a place to flirt where they couldn't be overheard by their parents. Judging by the hushed giggles drifting from the benches, it is almost certainly the latter. As you walk further out, you hear a pop, followed by a low hiss. Then another pop hiss. Pop hiss. The gas lights are coming on. A lamplighter is moving ahead of you, reaching up with his long pole to ignite the globes. The light they cast is not the warm, steady glow of electric bulbs. It is a flickering, greenish-yellow luminescence that makes everyone look slightly ghostly. The shadows stretch and jump. The ironwork casts intricate, lace-like patterns on the deck that dance as the gas pressure fluctuates. You stop at the railing and lean out, looking back at the town. From here, floating above the sea, Margate looks magical. The string of lights along the seafront curves like a diamond necklace. You can't see the peeling paint or the donkey manure. You can only see the glow, a quirky fringe tidbit. Highly sensitive Victorians often complained that the hissing of gas lamps on quiet piers induced a state of nervous agitation. But to you, right now, it sounds like a lullaby. It is a white noise that masks the sound of your own thoughts. You approach the bandstand at the end of the pier. The brass band is playing their final set of the night. It is a slow, mournful rendition of the last rose of summer. The musicians look tired. The tuba player is suppressing a yawn that threatens to swallow his entire head. You find a bench and sit down. The wood is damp with salt spray, but you don't mind. You close your eyes and listen. The music drifts out over the black water. The wind cools your face, which is still glowing faintly from the seaweed scrubbing. You take a mental inventory of your body. Your skin feels tight and clean. Your lungs feel scoured. Your stomach is settled. The knot of anxiety that lived in your chest has unspooled. Did the fish guts work? Did the freezing water really rebalance your humors? Or was it just this? The simple act of stopping. The act of sitting on a wooden bench, suspended between the sky and the sea. with nothing to do but listen to a tuba and breathe. The band finishes. There is a polite scattering of applause from the few remaining strollers. The conductor bows. They begin to pack away their instruments, the brass glinting under the gaslight. It is the signal that the day is truly done. You stand up, stretching your back. It is time to go. You walk back down the length of the pier, heading toward the land. The town seems to be waiting for you, warm and welcoming. You pass the silhouette cutter's booth, now shuttered tight. You pass the telescope, pointed blindly at the dark horizon. You pass the turnstile and step back onto solid ground. The walk back to the hotel is slow. Your legs feel heavy, a good leaden heaviness that promises deep sleep. You enter the lobby, nodding to the night porter who is dozing behind the desk. The stairs seem steeper than they were this morning, but you climb them steadily. You enter your room. The maid has been in. The curtains are drawn. The bed is turned down. A single candle burns on the bedside table, casting a soft, golden pool of light. You strip off your clothes. The stiff collar, the heavy wool, the boots. You wash your face in the ceramic basin. The water cool and fresh. You blow out the candle. The room plunges into darkness, save for a sliver of moonlight escaping through the curtains. You climb into the high bed. The sheets are crisp and smell of lavender. You pull the heavy quilt up to your chin. You lie there, listening. You can still hear it, faintly, through the glass, the rhythmic, eternal sound of the sea. Swoosh, drag, swoosh, drag. It is the heartbeat of the world. You think about the train tomorrow. You think about London. But it feels far away, like a memory of a different life. Right now, there's only the warmth of the bed, the salt on your skin, and the sound of the waves. You are clean. You are restored. You are ready to drift. Wind down. The room is still now. The gaslights outside have dimmed to a faint, amber glow, barely reaching the corner where you rest. The hotel is asleep. The grand staircase is silent. The dining room is empty. The entire town has held its breath, settling into the quiet embrace of the night. Your breathing slows, matching the rhythm of the ocean outside. In and out, deep and slow. The heavy wool quilt feels like a protective weight, anchoring you to the mattress, pressing you gently down into the softness. The feathers cradle your shoulders, your neck, your head. You let go of the day. You let go of the cold shock of the water. You let go of the steam and the salt. They're just echoes now, fading into the dark. Your muscles uncoil, one by one. The tension in your jaw releases. The tightness in your brow smooths out. Your hands, resting on the sheets, curl naturally, heavy and loose. There is nothing left to do. No schedules to keep. No trains to catch. Not yet. For now, there is only this stillness. This safe, warm, quiet box of a room, floating in the night. The sound of the sea is a soft whisper, a hush that travels over the sand and the stones to find you. It says, sleep. It says, rest. The darkness behind your eyes grows deeper, softer, like velvet. You are drifting on a calm, warm tide, moving slowly away from the shore, away from the noise, floating towards a deep, dreamless silence. You are safe. You are warm. You are asleep. End of script. Dottie. Sweet dreams.